Thanks for listening to our daily podcast. If you love what you're hearing and you want more, you can get all 3 daily hours ad-free and on demand for less than $3 per month. Go to michaelmedved.com and subscribe today. We have a special deal right now, 50% off an annual membership. Our program covers all the current controversies in the news with my independent and uncensored views. Become a MedHead member today. Find out more at michaelmedved.com. That's michaelmedved.com.
And now, your daily dose of debate, breaking news, and uncensored views. This is the Michael Medved Show.
And another great day in this greatest nation on God's green earth, a great day where a great quote is circulating everywhere. It's a quote from literature. It's not a quote from today's politics or some of the issues that are on the table. The quote says, "The party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and your ears. It was their final, most essential command." Who was the source of that quotation? It's George Orwell from his famous book, celebrated novel, 1984. Well, it's not 1984, it's 2026. And right now, a lot of the people who are the most prominent people, most popular, influential people in America, led by the President of the United States himself, are basically telling you to reject the evidence of your eyes and your ears and of videotape and to try to believe them. Really. Really. It's a shocking situation. We will get to that, also get to a united statement by the foreign ministers of 5 nations. And by the way, this is not just any 5 nations. These are 5 nations which are consistently, all 5 of them, listed among the highest standard of living, the most admirable places to live, to raise children. We're talking about the Nordic nations, led in this particular case by Denmark. What are they saying? Don't mess with us. Don't threaten war on Denmark over the issue of stealing Greenland. It is amazing that this is even a political issue or a concern right now, but we will get to that. We're going to be speaking coming up to one of the most influential members of Congress on issues of foreign policy and national security. His name is Adam Smith. He is the ranking member, Democratic member, of the House Armed Services Committee and an expert on national defense who will be talking about the situation in Venezuela and what the future brings there with action in Congress today and action limiting President Trump's ability by the Senate to negotiate and to maneuver concerning Venezuela and oil and more. We'll get to that as well on the Medved Show. Okay, first up, talking about the evidence of your eyes and ears. There was a statement yesterday by President Trump that shocked me as much as any statement he's ever put on social media. And that's because it is just such an obvious lie. It is just such an obvious bit of distortion and dishonesty and totally indecent fabrication. Here's what the president wrote. The president wrote, "I have just viewed the clip of the event which took place in Minneapolis, Minnesota." That was yesterday morning, in the morning about 9:30 in the morning, Minnesota time. I have just viewed the clip of the event which took place in Minneapolis, Minnesota. It is a horrible thing to watch. That's the only true aspect of his entire statement. It was a horrible thing to watch. The woman screaming was obviously a professional agitator. We have no idea who the woman was who was screaming. It was someone in the background. It was not the woman who later was killed. Different woman. The woman screaming, says President Trump, was obviously a professional agitator, and the woman driving the car was very disorderly, obstructing and resisting, who then violently, willfully, and viciously ran over the ICE officer who seems to have shot her in self-defense. That's what Trump said on social. Okay, this is a lie. It is a clear lie. There are videos. There are about 4 of them. There are eyewitnesses. There was no ICE agent who was run over. No ICE agent was run over. And the idea that the woman who was simply trying to get out of the way of an ICE operation, the idea that she ran over an ICE officer violently, willfully, and viciously is the kind of thing that in some kind of lawsuit, which is undoubtedly going to develop, the poor lady who was shot in the face and died, and leaving behind 3 children. They've already set up a GoFundMe source that has raised $500,000 to help her children. Her husband had died several years ago, and she's described as a poet. Okay. And the idea that she behaved in a disorderly, obstructing, and resisting, and willfully and viciously ran over an ICE officer, it's not true. You can't hide that. And you can't hide the fact that if you were run over by a car speeding away, if someone's life was being threatened, then you have some injuries to report. There's no evidence of injuries. The president goes on to say, the situation is being studied in its entirety, but the reason these incidents are happening is because the radical left is threatening, assaulting, and targeting our law enforcement officers and ICE agents on a daily basis. They are just trying to do the job of making America safe. We need to stand by and protect our law enforcement officers from this radical left movement of violence and hate, the president said. And then later, there were statements that were also patent lies from Kristi Noem. There's the first stirrings, at least the first stirrings in a little while, about the impeach Noem now. Because again, with her to say, or her DHS spokesman, Department of Homeland Security spokesman, whose name is Tricia McLaughlin, she said one of the protesters, quote, attempted to run over our law enforcement officers in an attempt to kill them, an act of domestic terrorism. Okay, to call this woman, whose name is Renee Nicole Good, who's 37 years old, who is not an immigrant. She is a citizen of the United States of America, and citizens should not need protection from being shot in the face while they're trying to get out of the way of an ICE operation in Minnesota. The eyewitnesses reported, by the way, one agent yelled at Renee Nicole Good to leave or get out of here as she sat in her vehicle, which was partially blocking the street. Simultaneously, other agents approached her car, with one officer attempting to open her driver's side door and shouting, "Get out of the beep car." And the shooting then followed as she tried to get the car out of the way, was backing up, was backing not toward the ICE agents, was backing away from them when 3 shots were fired, and you can hear them very clearly on the tape. And then after the shots were fired into her face, the car crashed into another car that was parked on the side of the street. This is all extraordinary. The Wednesday shooting happened a day after the Department of Homeland Security announced, quote, with pride, the largest DHS operation ever is happening right now in Minnesota. The agency said it was deploying 2,000 law enforcement officers to the Twin Cities an escalation of an immigration crackdown started more than a month earlier. So what next? And what about the reaction of local officials? One of whom said, "Get the beep out of our city." We'll be right back on the Medved Show. What makes a president great? That's a question that kind of obsesses Donald Trump, and he is very, very determined to emerge historically as our greatest president, or certainly one of our greatest presidents. The greatest president, according to every poll and every survey and every examination, the greatest president we've ever had is Abraham Lincoln. And yes, we're coming up to his birthday, February 12th, coming up. But Abraham Lincoln wasn't called Great Abe. He wasn't called Brilliant Abe, though he was. He was called Honest Abe, telling the truth. And by the way, that nickname goes back to his beginnings in New Salem, Illinois, where he had a store that he had set up with a friend, and they went bankrupt and they lost money. And they lost money for investors, but they paid back every penny. And Abe was honest in his personal dealings, and he was certainly honest in his leadership. And to have the President of the United States and the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, to have them both involved in just flat out crazy, nutty lies that are very easily rebuffed and very easily exposed. Why? Because there is tape. There are eyewitness accounts. For instance, just listen to Kristi Noem, the Secretary of Homeland Security, who talks about the 37-year-old American citizen, American-born mother of 3 who was shot in the face and killed by ICE agents for trying to get out of their way. And she was backing up the car and trying to drive away, not driving toward anyone and not running over anyone, and no one was run over. Yet this is what Kristi Noem said in her press conference in Minnesota. Listen carefully, clip 21.
You asked about a shooting that we just had in Minneapolis, Minnesota. It was an act of domestic terrorism. What happened, it was our ICE officers were out in an enforcement action. They got stuck in the snow because of the adverse weather that is in Minneapolis. They were attempting to push out their vehicle, and a woman attacked them and those surrounding them and attempted to run them over and ram them with her vehicle. An officer of ours acted quickly and defensively shot to protect himself and the people around him. And my understanding is that she was hit and is deceased. We're continuing to gather more information, but this goes to show the assaults that our ICE officers and our law enforcement are under every single day. These vehicle rammings are domestic acts of terrorism. We're working with the Department of Justice to prosecute them as such. We will continue to protect our ICE officers and in cooperation with other law enforcement agencies as well.
The idea that she didn't begin by acknowledging that an American citizen was killed, she describes this as an act of domestic terrorism. There are eyewitnesses, and lots of them. None of them agree with what Kristi Noem just said. She wasn't there. And in fact, there was a witness who was there, whose name was Emily Heller, who actually filmed the ICE shooting, and she refuted everything about the Trump and Noem self-defense claim. The idea that they came there to try to harm or act as domestic terrorists against the ICE officers. The poor woman was trying to get out of the way. This is what witness Emily Heller saw and put on videotape as well. Clip 24.
There was an ICE convoy that seemed to be stuck, and then there was a protester who was blocking traffic, so they couldn't progress. And she was totally peaceful. And ICE, it seemed completely unorganized. They didn't really know what they were doing. They were screaming at her to move, move, move. And then they approached her vehicle aggressively and tried to open her door. And then that's when she got spooked, and she reversed her vehicle to turn her wheels to try to escape. And that's when an ICE agent stepped in front of her vehicle and said, "Stop." And then, I mean, she was already moving, and then point blank shot her through her windshield in the face.
So President Trump says the woman was disorderly, obstructing and resisting, who then violently, willfully, and viciously ran over the ICE officer who seems to have shot her in self-defense. He shared a video of the incident from a different angle. What's your response to that version of events?
I just can't let this narrative that it was self-defense go any further, because it's absolutely not what it was.
Okay, absolutely not what it was. Not even close. And Joe Scarborough actually was fairly strong on this issue because, like literally millions of other Americans, he watched the video and nobody was run over. She had not turned her automobile into an item of attack against ICE. Here is Joe Scarborough on what used to be MSNBC, clip 20.
Well, there are many times, and there will be some ambiguities, especially with the first shot, that I think a lot of law enforcement officers, a lot of advocates will be debating about for some time. You look at guidelines, a police officer, law enforcement, it's not supposed to place himself in front of a car. That's just common knowledge. I will say, though, there is no ambiguity that Kristi Noem got out immediately, lied, talked about snowbanks, talked about a lot of things that did not appear to be in any of these videos. And it was just this immediate reaction. The videos that are shown clearly underline the fact that you have someone responsible for this ultimately that got out as quickly as she could at another event without the facts and lied to the American people. And of course, branded this victim, this 37-year-old mother who now has an orphaned child, a domestic terrorist, when there is no evidence of that whatsoever. It's just a bold-faced lie.
Yeah, it's a bold-faced lie. And somebody who was very clear on this being a lie and very indignant about it, the mayor of Minneapolis, who just got elected in a landslide to his third term. He's an impressive guy, as you will see. His name is Jacob Fry, and he basically was also indignant, and appropriately so, about our high-ranking officials lying about this incident. We will get to that and more. We're also going to be speaking to Andrew McCarthy, former federal prosecutor. That and more coming up on the Medved Show. And on the Michael Medved Show, obviously whenever there's a police shooting where police officers are involved in often a very difficult and very dangerous situation, end up shooting a suspect or a perpetrator of some kind of crime, my personal instinct is, like I believe that of the great majority of my fellow Americans, which is I sympathize with the cops. I'm a great admirer of the police. Earlier in my life, much earlier, I spent a little bit more than a year working for police departments in the Bay Area of San Francisco, including Oakland, San Francisco, and Berkeley police departments, and it gave me profound respect for police officers. And usually when you hear a situation like this, and it's almost always the case, you can understand how something terrible could happen, and sometimes resulting in the death of a suspect who is struggling against police officers or threatening their safety. but there is a statement that is considered part of a core principle that is found in the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, DHS, and the Department of Justice and their use of force policies. Statement says, get out of the way of the vehicle and don't shoot at the car. Okay, the police officer who killed this woman in Minneapolis was not getting out of the way of the vehicle. He was trying to put himself in front of the vehicle. Who knows why? And he shot her 3 times in the face and killed her. And these policies generally prohibit officers from shooting at moving vehicles. They emphasize avoiding dangerous situations if possible. The actual policy language states that deadly force is only permissible if there is no other reasonable defense option that exists, which specifically includes just moving out of the vehicle's path. And here, when you see the video, her vehicle's path was backing away from the officers and then turning her car and trying to drive down the street. That was when she was hit by a third officer who was surrounding her car. Key aspects of the policy: prohibition on shooting at vehicles. DHS and ICE, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement policies, prohibit officers from discharging firearms at a moving vehicle solely to disable it or to stop a fleeing suspect. This was not a suspect. She wasn't fleeing. She is an unfortunate casualty of a great deal of stupidity and distortion about what actually happened. The mayor of Minneapolis, who again is a capable and popular guy, and in his some of his most recent elections, and he's been elected 3 times as mayor of the city. The guy's 44 years old. He's impressive. And he basically ran against people who were very radical. This is after George Floyd. He had challengers who wanted to defund the police, get rid of the police, and he was a supporter of the police in Minneapolis. And here is what Mayor Jacob Fry wanted to tell to Kristi Noem and the 2,000 ICE operatives who were flooding the streets of Minneapolis. This is Mayor Jacob Fry, clip 19.
I've seen a lot of Republicans here in Washington criticizing those comments, saying that you're escalating tensions with that. Can you respond to them, and what do you say to them tonight, people who criticize those comments?
I'm so sorry if I offended their Disney princess ears, but here's the thing. If we're talking about what's inflammatory, on the one hand, you got someone who dropped an F-bomb, and on the other hand, you got someone who killed somebody else. F-bomb, killing somebody. I think the more inflammatory action is killing somebody. And so, once again, let's be real and just honest and straight up about what's happening here. This is not okay. The way they're coming into cities, not just Minneapolis, but around the country, is not okay.
I think that people looking at this situation would probably reach the same conclusion as Mayor Fry. He was also on CNN with Anderson Cooper, and the mayor had this to say, clip 18.
There's obviously a huge disagreement about what the videos show. Have you completely made up your mind, or do you still have questions?
I'm not going to preempt the investigation that will be taking place, I'm told, by the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension at the state. But I got 2 eyes. I saw the same videos that you saw. And the notion that this is domestic terrorism on the form of the victim, is positively ridiculous. I mean, the way that ICE is behaving is reckless, not just in this incident, but numerous others. And here's the thing. The chief and I have been saying, not just privately, but very publicly for well over a month, that something like this was going to happen.
Okay, and Jacob Fry, also with Anderson Cooper, said this about Kristi Noem and her distortions of what actually happened. This is clip 17.
First off, when I hear that, that sounds to me like someone that does not believe a word that she is saying. We have worked with federal agencies, by the way, substantially around investigating violent crime, preventing narcotics trade, getting guns off the street. We've worked with the U.S. Attorney's Office substantially. We've driven down crime on the north side, for instance. Crime is, and specifically shootings, are at an historic low. So, look, we're pro-law enforcement. We're anti-violating the Constitution. We're anti-crime. But we're pro getting ICE out of here because I got to say, they are causing so many problems in our city. The stated reason, again, is safety. But what we are seeing is that they are tearing families apart.
And obviously, there's a family that's been destroyed with the three children, someone who had already been widowed with her husband dying, 3 years ago. In any event, the entire thing is so sad. And there are more reactions like that of Mayor Fry, like that of Joe Scarborough, like that of Adam Kinzinger, former congressman, conservative Republican from Illinois, who put up a video where he spoke to people who have this overwhelming instinct to defend police or people in law enforcement. And it's a healthy instinct because they are on our side. But the people who are lying about this, the politicians, not the police officers, because the chief of police of Brian O'Hara of Minneapolis was on together with the mayor condemning the distortions about this shooting. There's more about the impact of that, and also the Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance, jumping in with his own embarrassments here. We'll get to that and more coming up on the Medved Show. And by the way, one of the reasons that I have been speaking positively about the mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob Fry, is because he is succeeding right now in the most important aspect of his job, which is keeping the peace. They canceled schools today in Minneapolis because, remember, this is a city that lived through the devastating and a very costly reaction to the killing of George Floyd. And here you have a situation where someone was not struggling with police officers. There's no question about this woman, Renee Nicole Good, being an innocent victim of a terrible mistake. And Dan Goldman, who is a member of the Congress of the United States, was speaking to reporters outside the Capitol building on the ICE shooting, and he said this, clip 13.
Invading our cities, using excessive force lawlessly with new agents without proper training. And sadly, this was not unexpected, but it is egregious. It was an outright murder. And the fact that the administration is trying to defend the ICE officer when everyone can see with their own eyes that that car was trying to get away because it still turned away from the officer after she was shot in the head. So the fact that they are arguing that somehow this is domestic terrorism, much less an attack on ICE, is preposterous. This officer not only needs to be fired and suspended, but based on the video, he needs to be charged with murder.
And do you think that will happen?
I have no idea what will happen.
Okay, and by the way, there's also potential legal action that the family and survivors of Nicole Good can file against the very high-ranking officials, people like the President of the United States and the Secretary of Homeland Security, for calling her posthumously a domestic terrorist, which is something that does have an impact on her 3 children and basically any respect for the truth. Adam Kinzinger posted a video, the former Republican congressman from Illinois, and what that video said was directed at his fellow Republicans. This is clip 30.
Some Republicans calling this domestic. I've seen some Republicans calling this domestic terrorism. Not the officer that shot the lady that was trying to get away. They call the lady domestic terrorism. This is insane, okay? Listen, Republicans, if you're just going to defend this shooting, defend it on its merits. You start jumping to domestic terrorism. This is insane. You look ridiculous. And let me also say, without making a judgment call on whether this officer had a fear for his life or not, that will be determined, although it very much looks like she's driving away from him. But I'll leave that for another discussion, because here's the point. The whole reason you have sent 1,000 officers into Minneapolis,
2,000.
and you claim it's because, there's just that they're not doing anything. No, it's because the Somali immigrant community has been on the news. You're using it as a straw man to attack Walz and to attack the Jacob Fry, the mayor of Minneapolis. Maybe you don't like him. Fine. But you sent 1,000 law enforcement officers in there to stir up trouble. You didn't need a surge because there magically was a new problem that didn't exist 3 months ago.
Okay, speaking of that problem, J.D. Vance, the vice president, says America has a Somali problem. Now, here's a fun game, right? Try thinking about replacing the word Somali with, another term, like a black problem, or a Jewish problem, or a Latino problem. How would that go? I mean, Adolf Hitler seized power based upon his definition of the Jewish problem. Is this for real? This is just J.D. Vance, the Vice President of the United States, speaking to Jesse Waters on Fox News. Clip 14.
The Democrats have a little bit of a Somali problem. They've let it
America
go.
has a bit of a Somali problem.
Especially the Democrats in Minnesota. Why'd they just let it happen right under their nose?
Well, a couple of things, Jesse. First of all, if you look at the amount of fraud in the welfare system, according to the statistics I've seen, 85% of Somalians who are in the United States, legal and illegal, are collecting some form of welfare benefits. So that's not to disparage the other 15%, but when you're at 85% of a population that is collecting welfare, that suggests that we have really done something wrong with regards to vetting, and that's the fundamental issue. Even if there's no fraud, 85% collecting welfare is way too many damn people collecting welfare, getting rich off the American taxpayer while a lot of Americans struggle. That's unacceptable. What's going on in Minneapolis, I think, is actually representative of a broader fraud scheme that we're going to see all over the country. We're going to see it in California. We're going to see it in other places too, where people get rich from the American taxpayer.
Okay. People getting rich, I believe, having read the Hillbilly Elegy, the sort of autobiography of J.D. Vance, his family received welfare benefits. His mother, or his grandmother, actually, who was mostly responsible for his raising, was trying to deal with his mother's substance abuse and drinking problems. And the idea that he so eagerly jumped onto Jesse Waters' statement to say that America has a Somali problem. Can you imagine how difficult that is going to be to defend going forward when this individual wants to run for president? there is also this, and again, it's from Joe Scarborough, Morning Joe, who talks about the way that the GOP has been handling the Republicans who have been unwilling to post a plaque honoring the officers who served on January 6th. Going back to this darkest day in American history, where 140, some people now say it was 170 officers were injured and hospitalized. Some died as an impact, not a direct immediate impact, but eventually from the wounding that they received at the riots in the Capitol building. The Senate and the House passed a bill saying there should be a plaque up to honor the officers who served on that dark day. They haven't put it up. They've refused to do so. And Joe Scarborough has it in on MS Now for the failure of the Republicans who were ashamed to honor the January 6th officers.
You know how many people, Congressman, said that these people should never be pardoned, including J.D. Vance? I mean, I think I saw a clip of Charlie Kirk saying in real time, these people should face the full consequences. And now they're marching in public, proud that they beat the shit out of cops. I want to know why Republicans in the Senate hate cops so much that they will not honor these cops whose families say they lost their lives because of those because of those thugs in that mob. I don't mean to be naive here. I really don't. But I don't know how this could happen in America, that cops are beaten up. And you have Republicans on Capitol Hill afraid to honor those law enforcement officers?
There is more reaction from others looking back on a meaningful remembrance of the January 6th disaster. We'll also be speaking to Adam Smith, congressman who's a ranking Democrat on the Armed Services Committee, a conflict with Greenland and Denmark, and also the long-term impact of what is going on with Venezuela. We will also be speaking later today with Andy McCarthy, former federal prosecutor, senior editor at National Review, about what is going on with ICE and the problems that were highlighted by this shooting in Minneapolis, all part of understanding the dilemma of this greatest nation on God's green earth.